Hi there, welcome back to the Flask Mastery series. I'm Gorret Golden, and in this session we are going to be implementing an endpoint that retrieves a particular book by its ID. So let's get started. So within our company controller, we are going to make use of the endpoint that retrieves a particular company by its ID. So I'm going to copy this up and paste it here. As always, first things first, we are going to go ahead and update our comment to get book by ID, and then the blueprint is going to be updated to books. And still for this endpoint, we know that we are going to be retrieving a book by an ID. So that means that we need to pass in the path first, and this is going to be /book. And this URL is also going to have a route parameter, which is going to be the ID, since the ID is a unique identifier on our book model. Still, we are going to protect this endpoint with the JWT required decorator. And for us to implement the logic, we shall first of all update the function name to get book, and then it must pass in the ID as the parameter for that function. So if we are to retrieve information of a particular book whose ID is going to be passed in from the request, we have to ensure that we are making a query against our book model. And for this case, we have to filter our database, actually our books table, using the ID that is being passed through the request. So for that case, instead of this variable being company, it's going to be updated to book, such that we store a variable that is going to have the details of that book for a particular ID that is being provided within the request. So we make a query by saying book.query.filter by id.first, and we ensure that we are getting the first record for which this ID exists. And for cases whereby an ID from the request does not exist within our books table, we have to return a response that the book is not found, so book not found. And for cases whereby the ID exists, we have to go ahead and return that book details. So our response is going to have the message as book details retrieved successfully, and we shall be returning the book object. So with the fact that we already have an object having the book attributes defined, I'm just going to go ahead and delete this. And within the endpoint that creates a new book, I'm going to go ahead and copy this up and paste it here. So instead of new book, this is going to be updated to book, because that is the variable that we have just defined for the book details. So this will be book. And having updated that, looks like there is an error. So we also have to append a new brace, a curly brace here. And having added that, we are going to go ahead and test our endpoint to ensure that it is working as expected. So as always, the first thing we do is creating a new request to handle this endpoint. So this is going to be get book by ID, and then the path is going to be books/book, then / the ID for which we want to work with. So for now, we are going to work with ID1, and that is book title, Python for Beginners edition 1. So I'm going to pass in ID1 and also ensure that I'm passing in the authorization headers and making a new request. If the token has expired, then I'll just get a fresh token and update the access token. So having made a new request, we can pretty see that we are getting the details for book 1. So we can see that we are getting the author details, the company details, and then the information about this book. And this is Python for Beginners edition 1. We can see that we are getting the ISBN, the price unit, and this. So how about if we update this to book ID2 and make a new request? We can see that the endpoint is dynamic and the title is changed to Python for Beginners edition 2. So how about if we pass in an ID that does not exist? So when I try to make a new request with ID 200, we are getting an internal server error. Non-type object has no attribute ID. So this has to be if not book, the variable that we have defined, not the class. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new request. So having made a new request, we can pretty see that we are getting a response of 404, book not found. I hope you found this session insightful. Thanks for watching. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you again in the next session.